Welcome to Chris Lee Travel Channels. Welcome all my fellow travelers, photographers and friends around the world. It's another exciting episode awaiting you. This number 59 episode of my travel journey to another new nation, a nation that known to the world as a thousand island nation, a nation that neighbor to Malaysia, a nation that we known as Indonesia. So in today's episode, I'm going to share with you on these Java Islands of Indonesia, and it will comprise of 3 episodes, and today is the first episode of our journey. And in this first episode of our journey, we will bring you to their natural attraction, that is the volcanoes mountains. Now a bit of the background of Indonesia. Now Indonesia is well known to the world, as I mentioned just now, as the thousand island nation and having the world's largest Muslim populations, with a population exceeding 200 million. It's located in the region classified under the Southeast Asia and is the best for its ecotourism, with abundance of natural attractions such as mountains, beaches, caves, and waterfalls. Now, Java Island is one of the major islands and the most important island of this thousand island nation. Now, the Java Island is not only the 13th largest island, which cover an area of 1,290,904 square kilometers, but also the most populous island in the world. Now, with a population around 147.8 million in the year 2020. Now, the capital city of Indonesia, Jakarta, is also located in this island at the western end of this Java Island. So geographically, Java is almost entirely of volcano origin, with more than 150 volcanoes. It contains 38 volcanic mountains forming an east-west spine, or backbone of Java Island, with Mount Semeru at its highest peak at 3,676 meters above sea level, while the Mount Merapi is the most active volcano in Indonesia. And first of all, let's look at this map itself. That is basically we classify the Java Island into 3 main zones. That is the East Java, the Central Java, and the West Java. So the East Java is the zone that color in orange color. As mentioned just now, that this volcano, 38 volcanic mountain, forming the spine or backbone of Java Island, that stretching from east to west, as can be seen in this topography map of Java Islands. And of course, our focus for today will be at the eastern Java, eastern end, where it's enclosed in this rectangular red square box. A bit on the climates of Indonesia. Now, these tropical rainforest region nations, Indonesia, has only 2 seasons. Now, the wet and the dry season. And the dry season starts from the month of May till September, while the wet season starts from the month of October till April. The months of April and October are transition months, right? And the best season I would recommend to travel is during the dry season with fewer rainy days. And the daily temperature remains fairly constant while the whole year round with an average of 28 degrees Celsius. At coastal regions, the daily temperatures could be lower by about 2 degrees Celsius. So our focus for today will be East Java, Indonesia. Let's look at the map again. Now in this East Java, Indonesia map, you notice that there are many color triangle, both in red color and in green color. Now this triangle is symbolized volcanic mountains. The red triangle is the active volcano, and while the green one is non-active or the hibernating volcano. You can find quite a number of them stretched in this East Java from east to west. So again, we touch a bit on this East Java, Indonesia. Now, East Java is one of the provinces in the island of Java. It's covered an area of 47,800 square kilometers. It is also the second most populous province in Indonesia, right, with a population of about 40.7 million in the year 2020. Now, Javanese and Madurese languages are the regional languages. Of the 40.7 million populations, 94% are Muslim and the remaining are of other religions. So in this map, you notice the two spots, the spot number 1, the Mount Bromo, and also the Aegean crater number 2 will be our focus for today. Now, Mount Bromo, one of the most visited volcano in Indonesia. Let's have some background of this Mount Bromo. Mount Bromo is located in the Bromo Tengger Semeru National Park, right, a natural reserve been protected since 1919, which occupied 4 districts in East Java province. That is the Probolinggo district, Malang district, Pasuruan district, and the Lumajang district. Now, the name Bromo came from the Javanese pronunciation Brahma, which is the Hindu god of creation. Now, Mount Bromo is an active volcano and one of the most active volcanoes in Indonesia as well as in the world. Its most recent recorded eruption was in the year March 2019. The crater gushing out white sulfurous smoke all day long and all year round. So Mount Bromo is part of the Tengger Mountain. Together with Mount Bromo are 4 other smaller peaks. It's located on the plain called the Sea of Sand, which the local call it Laut Pasir, a kind of very fine volcanic sand. Right? The peak is at 2,329 meters above sea level, and the size of the Mount Bromo is about 10 kilometers in diameter. Now, although it is not the highest peak, it is very popular for its stunning sunrise view at Panajaka viewpoint at Mount Panajakan, which is 2,770 meters above sea level. So you can see from the map here is highlight the region where this national park is located. Is in the blue circle, dotted blue circle region. So you can see that the Mount Bromo, where the arrow pointed to, and the surrounding volcano have covered quite a big area in East Java. As just now I mentioned here, that there is a plain, right, called Sea of Sand, and you can see now from this image. And at the background, you will notice that there are a few volcano mountains, and of course, the one on the right is not the Mount Bromo. Instead, the center one that with emitting smoke, this is the Mount Bromo. So this image will give you a clearer view of the Mount Bromo crater, and as you can see also there's one straight line thing in the image. Is basically is a stairway that have 250 steps. Then right on the right hand side, you can notice that on rest on this so-called Sea of Sand, there is housed a temple building. This is a view taken from the mid-hill of Mount Bromo. Afar, you can see that there's an arrow pointing, I highlighted, the nearest village. And this is the village that we put a night over there. And the name of this village is Simoro Lawang Village. More images of the surrounding view from mid-hill of Mount Bromo. Another volcano peak just next to Mount Bromo. And there are many ways there are two ways to view Mount Bromo. One way to view Mount Bromo is up close to the crater rims. At the edge of the crater are narrow lips where you can look into the belly of this belching sulfurous center of crater, which from time to time you have to face with a gush of toxic sulfuric gas or smoke heading toward you. So our first encounter will be up close to the Mount Bromo. We are now we taken the pony ride, and we are now on the pony on our way to the mid-hill of Mount Bromo. We are not the early batch. In fact, on the way to the Mount Bromo, to the mid-hill, there are many other visitors on the returning journey. Now at this point is also the end of our pony ride, and we have to begin our journey on foot to the stairway that's not far away from us. And it's important to note to visitors who plan to visit this place, please get ourselves prepared with scarf or face mask, thing of that kind, that to cover your face and your nose, because this volcanic dust or sand are very fine in nature. You can see from this image that if you are riding right behind a pony ride, or you are particularly if you are on foot, you can see how dusty the environment, the surrounding is, that you can see from this image and also the next image. So we finally on foot landed to the foothill of this stairway, which is leading us to the edge of the crater. And of course, you can find a prayer ground before the start of the stairway. Now, the stairway are arranged in such a manner that on the left hand side is for the ascending path, and then on the right hand side is for the descending. So it's up on the left, down on the right. Now it's important to note that these 250 step stairways, there is no mid landing in between, and therefore you have to watch out your step. You look at this image, you can see that the step are most filled, covered with those volcanic dust or sand. So hence it could be very slippery, and watch your step, all right, while climbing the stairways, because once you have a fall, you will be straight down all the way, because without a mid landing to stop from falling further. When they finally reach the top of this the crater rims, there is a short stretch where it's been barricaded, right, to provide the extra safety for the guests or visitor. But you can look at the manner that this barricade was built, that there are much space in between, open space in between. There's no mid barricade rails. They only have a top and bottoms. So it's not designed to suit children or young children. So your parent, if you happen to bring children to visit this place, please keep a very close monitoring, close watch of your child, because it's not safe for children to be in this region. Occasionally, you face with the gush of toxic smokes that are blown toward you, and you must try to avoid it. And therefore, you also need to cover your face with scarf if necessary to protect from this toxic smoke or gas. This view of the interior of the crater. You could find some visitor adventurous type that which want to go beyond the barricaded crater rims edge to the other side of a crater. And of course, this act is totally a dangerous act that you're taking at your own risk. And on the return journey, you could also find visitors that decided not to use a stairway. Instead, they prefer the descent on the other face of the volcano slopes. The pony here have been well decorated, and can be seen in this image. Besides viewing the Mount Bromo up close, which I've just shared with you on the images just now, another way of viewing Mount Bromo is to view it from afar. And there's a one viewing platform, viewing point created. We call it the Vantage Panajakan viewpoint, which actually is on another mountain called Panajakan Mountains, or Mount Panajakan, a mountain which is 2,770 meters above sea level, not far away from Mount Bromo. So at this vintage viewpoint, right, you can have a fascinating and panoramic view of this Mount Bromo, particularly during the early sunrise view of the entire Mount Bromo, including the Mount Batok as well as Mount Semeru in the surrounding region. Now, if you plan to take the sunrise, view the sunrise scene, then it's best to stay near to Mount Bromo, at the village which I have mentioned to you, that is the Simoro Lawang village. Otherwise, you may have to travel midnight in order to reach this vantage viewpoint. We will consider late when we arrive at this vantage viewpoint, Panajakan viewpoint. You can see the crowd that have already been built up, and not a single space left behind. I hardly can find a space to place my tripod. So most of the images taken in this travel are all handheld. These are some of the scenes in the early hours while viewing from this Panachakan viewpoint. The sea of crowd in the early morning. Now, a point to note that if you are not putting a night in this village, then the Panajakan viewpoint is just about 2.5 hour drive from Malang town, the nearest town, or 4 hour drive from Surabaya city. Now, it is important to note that although Indonesia falls under the tropical rainforest climates, due to the high altitude of Mount Bromo, the daily temperature there range from 5 to 20 degrees Celsius. Warm clothing at night is a must. Best time to visit this region is between the months of June till August due to less rain. Now, peak season for Mount Bromo fall on the month of August, or when Kasada festival is around the corner. As Kasada festival take place on every 14 days of the Kasada months in the traditional Hindu lunar calendars. Now, a word of advice for visitors to Mount Bromo: please avoid weekends as to avoid the huge crowd, which can be seen in my earlier two images. And this image will show exactly as the raised platform where this Simoro Lawang village is located. This is a zoom image taken from this Panajakan viewpoint. So after sunrise, the most visitors will still prefer to be stay around for an hours and just to have fun. The scenery, morning scenery in this viewpoint is fascinating and awesome. And if you have not have your breakfast, not to worry, because in this viewpoint, you can find out there are many mobile hawker selling snacks for the visitor, as well as souvenir. So now we will move on to Mount Ijen. Now, Mount Ijen, let's get a bit facts about Mount Ijen. First of all, look at the image itself. You can see the insert on the left hand bottom is actually the Ijen crater lakes, right? It's an acidic lakes in these regions. Now, Mount Ijen is a part of a volcano complex, a cluster of volcanoes found between the border of Banyuwangi and Bondowoso Regency of East Java province. This entire volcanic region is termed as Ijen Plateau by some people, with an average altitude of 2,300 meters above sea level. Now, Mount Ijen is only 1.5 hour drive away from the Banyuwangi city to the mountain post, the post Pauduting, right? So let's look at this map. You can able to spot where the location of Mount Ijen. You can see that it's almost the last volcano cluster in the Java Islands, next to Bali Islands. So the entire region that's a circle in red is basically I refer to as the Ijen Plateau. Is also a place that term caldera. Now, on this Ijen Plateau is where house a caldera that filled with acidic waters and known to the world the larger crater lakes. This water-filled crater is officially named the Kawah Ijen. In Indonesian language, Kawah means crater in English, right? Now, caldera is a term used to represent a large cauldron-like hollow that formed shortly after the emptying of the magma chamber in the volcano eruptions. Now, the collapse of the ground surface downwards into the empty or partially empty magma chamber, a kind of massive depression at the surface of the earth, or more correctly to say, it's just like a sinkhole out of a larger in size and magnitudes. So the Ijen caldera is the largest in Indonesia, just for your info. Now, our visit to this Kawah Ijen or Ijen crater is so popular among the tourists, partly because it is the world's largest acidic volcanic crater lakes, but also of its blue fires or blue sulfur flame, as well as a sulfur mining activity manually carried out by a sulfur miner in this region. These are the three causing the main attraction of people coming to Kawah Ijen. But this only happened in the year 1971. It's after two tourists from France published their story of the charm of Ijen crater and the hard life of the sulfur miner in their Geo magazine in French, and also after a photographers that posted picture of blue flames pouring down the mountains. So this map to show in these caldera regions and the volcano that found in this region, and Mount Ijen is just one of the volcano. Now in this map will show that the Aegean crater that been filled with water. And the at the arrow pointing region is the southeastern regions of the lake. You notice that that is where the sulfur mining is activity being carried out. And our visit to this Aegean crater is at this location. And this is the photograph or the picture of the blue frames that pouring down the mountain that attracted the world visitor. Now, a bit background of this Aegean crater lakes. This active water-filled crater measuring of 950 meter by 650 meter with average depth of about 176 meter and at an altitude of 2386 meter above sea level. This crater is famous for rich sulfur deposit and its turquoise color of the lake waters, which is highly acidic and mineral concentrated. Thus, these have given rise to active sulfur mining, right? And the sulfur mine from this crater is known as native sulfur, and it was mined by artisanal miner and not by industrial means. Now, most sulfur that produced in the world today are the byproduct of oil refining and natural gas process, but not by manually mined in this manner in Aegean crater. So these are the image of the Mount Aegean crater around the regions. This is a path we have to walk all the way to the Aegean crater. These images are all taken around 7 a.m. in the morning. The forest around are being covered with thick mist in the early mornings. And the mist will soon disappear once the sun rises. These are the view at about 8 a.m. in the morning. Let's touch a bit this famous sulfur mining in Mount Aegean. Now, today, very few locations on Earth where sulfur is still mined manually. Now, sulfur miner in this region earn about USD $13 per day. A hardworking miner could earn much more than this. They are working without any kind of protection, or with insufficient protections. Now, consequently, most of the miners suffer respiratory afflictions. Solidified sulfur is usually found in bright yellow color when it is cool, right? So let's look at some of the image of this sulfur mining. Now, the insert will show the miner is abstracting the sulfur at the sulfur mine region in the Aegean crater, and you can see that the sulfur been the solid sulfurs been placed on the baskets and been carried down to the collection point at the base of the Mount Aegean. Don't underestimate these two basket of sulfur. It can weigh to till about 40 to 50 kilogram, and therefore each miner maximum per day can do 3 rounds of mining, which means that it can harvest between 120 to 150 kilograms of sulfur. For some miner, we have been long in this business, they may own a cart of this nature to ease them from transporting the harvest sulfur to the foothill. And a point to note that on this blue fire, but before that, this is the hotel that we put a night, and we have to wake up right early in the morning. If not wrong, we will wake up midnight, and then by 1 a.m. we had to leave our hotel to the point, the post, right, the mountain post for our ascent to this Mount Aegean crater. Now, first and foremost, there are not many such blue fire sites on Earth today. The next well-known place on Earth is the Daulo Mountain of Ethiopia in Africa continent. Right? Because of that, they found that the blue fire in Mount Aegean is one of the main attractions. Now, the blue fire of burning sulfur or burning sulfur flame in Aegean crater, although it is burning 24 hours the whole year round, it could only be visualized under pitch dark condition or environment. Now, in order to view with your own eye, you not only need to start your ascending of the Mount Aegean as early as 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, but also to ensure that you are arriving at the crater at least an hour before the sunrise, and to allow you to descend down to the crater. And for your info, for those who are interested, please take note that from the foothill entrance gate, the post, right, the mountain post, till the crater is a 3.5 kilometer high all the way uphill. The extremely fine volcanic soils, coupled with the steep slopes, average ascending gradient of around 17 degrees Celsius from horizon. Now, this makes both ascending and descending extremely difficult for many, and we took longer than the expected time to reach the crater, just for your info. Now, another piece of advice I would like to give for viewers who intend to visit Mount Aegean and wanted to witness the blue fire, please note that at the crater, nearer to the burning sulfur flame region, there are thick toxic sulfuric smoke or vapor that pose serious danger to visitors. Now, which particularly to those suffer from heart and lung problems. Any accidental inhale of the toxic gas or smokes may affect the respiratory organs and lead to heart failure. In fact, you can find many such warning notices were placed around the crater region to warn the visitor. Now, secondly, in order to view the blue fire, you need to get close, as the light source is very, very weak. Alright, difficult to capture the image from far with your cameras. Right, visitors likely to follow the miner into the inner part of the Creator and to get a better picture. This is an uncharted path, I would say, because the unregulated and steep rocky path, coupled with the pitch dark environments, our surrounding, is extremely then unsafe for visitor. Now, particularly for the less fit one. Now, a misstep is possibly a route of no return. So please reserve more than enough energy to get out of the Creator and also for heading downhill on the return journey. I give my best blessing to all of you for a safe journey to Mount Ijen and back. Indeed, it's a place not to be missed in your travel bucket list. And before I end, I want to bring you another surprise. That is, instead of the tour of the volcano, I'll bring you to another natural attraction, that is waterfall. The name of this waterfall is Matakaripura Waterfall. So before I begin, let's share some facts about this Matakaripura Waterfall. Now, Matakaripura Waterfall is one of the most visited waterfall in East Java. Now, the waterfall is not too far from the slope of Bromo, about 45-minute drive from Bromo. It is hidden in the end of a deep valley in the foothill of mountains. Now, the waterfall has many cascades spouting over thick forests. Actually, Matakaripura Waterfall consists of 7 waterfalls, whose the biggest cascade fall is 200 meters in height. It was once the hermitage place of the Prime Minister of Majapahit Kingdoms, Gajah Mada. Alright? So now, upon arriving at the entrance gate to this waterfall. Now, as I mentioned earlier, now this Matakapuri waterfall is next to Mount Bromo. So the approximate location has been highlighted in this map. Now, this is the one of the entrance statue right at the entrance gates. So upon arrival at this entrance gate to this waterfall, in order to reach the canyon with the 200-meter high waterfall, it is necessary to walk about a kilometer along the river. Now, and then another half a kilometer on the river and below a couple of smaller waterfall with the help of our guide directions. Now, from the bottom of the waterfall, this waterfall stood at a height of 200 meters, which is the tallest waterfall in East Java and in Indonesia as well. A spectacular viewpoint when looking up at the bottom of the canyon. Let's look at the images of our trekking journey along this 1.5 kilometer. This is the entrance sign of this waterfall, and at the entrance gate regions you can find quite a lot of eatery for the guests to take their meal and take their rest. This is the path, the early part of the path, the 1 kilometer path that we have to walk along the river, edge of the river. And when up close, half a kilometer away from the 200 meter waterfall, then you have to walk past and walk into the river and walk under some tiny waterfall, as can be seen in this image. In fact, we were caught by surprise. Only upon our arrival at the entrance gate, then we were told that we have to dress up in a manner that all our camera gears and belongings must be protected from getting wet. And thus we have to purchase the raincoat along the store that found along the trekking trails. But even with the raincoat on our body, all our lower portion of our body were wet after we completed our journey. This 200-meter waterfall look from far, up close. Now we're right at the bottoms of this 200-meter waterfall. You can see that most of the visitors are dressed with raincoat on. And this is what a magnificent view. It's a horseshoe light. This waterfall in a horseshoe light shape. So finally we come to the end of our today's journey to East Java of Indonesia, the first episode of the 3 episodes of my journey. And if you are together with me until this point, I'm sure you have been entertained. Please give me a thumb up and please subscribe to my travel channel in supporting of these non-profit making travel channels with the aim of promoting tourism around the world. So for my friends, please stay strong and stay safe. Just a preview of my next episode. We will bring you to cover the UNESCO Cultural World Heritage Site on the both Hindu and Buddhist temple in Central Java. Right? Please stay tuned. Hope you are safe and strong, and see you again next week, and bye.